Welcome to the Paranormal Stakeout radio TV show with Larry Lawson. As a former career law enforcement officer and law enforcement educator, Larry focuses on the use of tried and true law enforcement investigative techniques in conducting paranormal investigations. Despite his experience and training, Larry also keeps an open mind to discussions on topics that deal with evidence that are not quite as physical in nature. Paranormal Stakeout guests are professionals in the field of the paranormal and parapsychology, conducting the investigations and research needed to further the cause of paranormal study. Larry advocates an agenda of standardization of structure and training in the field of paranormal investigation and research for the purpose of one day being able to produce the evidence needed to convince a jury of the existence of the paranormal. Whether it is ghosts, UFOs, unsolved mysteries, hauntings or cryptids, no topic is beyond the investigative reach of Larry Lawson and the Paranormal Stakeout radio TV show team. Now, here is the host of the Paranormal Stakeout radio TV show, Larry Lawson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Paranormal Stakeout. It's so good to see everybody again. I'm your host, Larry Lawson, coming to you from the X-Zone Broadcast Network's Southern Command Post in beautiful Vero Beach, Florida. Really excited to be back with you folks tonight, especially because we're live. And with that, I want to give a special hello and shout out to all of our friends and listeners on the CanCom Broadcast Network. So glad you're joining us tonight. You've got an opportunity to even ask us some questions, so feel free to type those in. It's beautiful weather down here in Florida. We're just starting to warm up down here. I guess some of you folks up north, especially our guest tonight up in northern New York, might even be a little bit cold still. But down here in Florida, it's beautiful weather, and I really appreciate all of you joining us. My guest tonight is a lifelong researcher in the fields of paranormal and the metaphysical. He grew up in the western New York State and has relatives in the Lilydale Spiritualist Assembly, which is good reason why he's doing what he's doing. He's an author, paranormal investigator, psychic. He's been doing a ton of different things. He's associated with the National Spiritualist Association of Churches, the Omega Institute, the Priesthood of, and I'll try not to mess this up, Tim, Melchizadek. He's a healer. He's also studied Modern Witchcraft, Voodoo, New Orleans Voodoo, Appalachian Hoodoo, and we're going to talk about that. He's a successful author, has written Ghosts of Buffalo, Mayhem, and Murder and Mayhem in Nickel City, and this one's particularly interesting to me, Reverend Zombie's Book of Divination. That's kind of interesting. He's also been on a bunch of TV shows that most of you will recognize. He's appeared on Discovery Channel's Ghost Lab, SyFy Channel's Ghost Hunters, Destination Channel's Paranormal Lockdown, and Travel Channel's Most Terrifying Places. He also hosts the vodcast Black Cat Lounge. In 2017, my guest tonight, Timothy Shaw, retired after 34 and a half years as a public servant with the town of Cheektowaga, I hope I didn't mess that up either, as a member of their highway department. So with that, I'd like to welcome my guest tonight, Mr. Timothy Shaw. Tim, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Larry. And you didn't mess up a thing. Everything was perfect. You know what? You almost spoke as if you were a native up here, up north.
Well, really happy to have you on the show tonight, Tim. You have a very, very interesting background. I'd like my listeners, my guests, to kind of learn a little bit more about you. How did you find your way into the world of the paranormal? How did you find out about your psychic abilities? Tell us about your journey.
Basically, and you know what? I always say it's a really boring story. My father's family, we can trace spiritualism to the 1880s. Mm-hmm. He was a spiritualist, married my mom. My mom was a Boston Irish Catholic. I went to parochial school for 8 years, but during the summer, we would go and visit our relatives in the Lilydale Assembly. And I know from looking at me, because, I don't have any kind of like tattoos or craziness or anything, you would never think that I was like a hellion. And we were. And so they enrolled us on Sundays at Lyceum. And Lyceum is the Spiritualist Sunday School. And that was fascinating. It was just fascinating because, you know, you had to do your book work and all that other stuff, just like any other catechism class. But we were able to go and work in a different realm. I mean, almost. We had children's seances, which are just like seances, except they're done in the mid-afternoon, bright light, you know, and that was to get us used to physical phenomena, not to be afraid of it, because basically we're taught to be of service on both sides, you know, the living and the other side. That's what our bottom line should always be as mediums. And it just kind of was natural to me, you know, it just was just a natural thing. And because again, my relatives had been readers. I was surrounded by kids from out there. You know, you're in an assembly, you're in a location, a gated community, basically, where everybody is part of the spiritualist religion. So it just was just very, very natural to me. I'm a child of, and I'm going to come right out and tell you, I'm a child of The Exorcist and Kolchak the Night Stalker, and loving all the horror movies, the black and white. I'm still a big fan of the horror movies. And it was just natural. It was just natural to me. And like, for me, developing mediumship was all part of Lyceum. And I was chosen as a gallery reader, and everybody had a little job. You know, you had healings and you had people that could do one-on-one readings and stuff. But my voice, I've had quite a few surgeries, so my voice is not as loud and as deep as it used to be. You know, after, you know, all the airways and that sort of stuff. And you know, being a gallery reader, what we do is
what is a gallery reader?
A gallery reader is what we bring during our services, during the spiritualist services. What we would do is we would bring forth what they call messages, short messages, and you would have to bring through what's called identifiers, and it's either a name or a physical attribute or something that you could go and people would say, oh, that came from so-and-so, because we don't believe in the death is the final phase. We believe that, you know, the soul goes on. And part of what we do is to bring that as proof. And that was basically what we did for the churches. So, and for me, it was just like an everyday thing. And I continued that until about, you know, as a child of disco. We'll just throw that in, Larry.
I would admit that.
Yeah. You know what? I was active in like churches and stuff up until then. Then it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And then back about 82, right around when I got married, I came back into what we do. And I got serious with it. And then I started taking far more classes, and I really started getting my spirituality in some kind of order. And I started testing it, you know, because the national is a religion, is an organization that we don't believe in going out there and converting people. It's conviction. So it's like, sure.
Yeah, let me ask you a question here, because sometimes people don't really understand. When you talk about mainstream Christian religions, we certainly talk about spirits.
Yeah.
So spiritualism, Christianity, what's the difference?
You know what? I'm going to come right and tell you. Outside of the basics of the whole thing, it's semantics. Many of the attributes, and I had a former Jesuit theologian tell me once that if I want to know what true mediumship is, read the life of the saints, which I did. The big sticking point, of course, is the divination of Christ, and they respect Christ as a enlightened teacher, as an instructor, as someone who should be you know, really I'm not going to say worshipped, but respected. So, but otherwise, I mean, everything. I've worked with a couple of exorcists over the years, and I love this one guy. He's the past bishop of Massachusetts, of the Western Rite Catholic Church. He's an exorcist, And we'd sit around and I'd say, I don't believe in angels. I don't believe in demons, all that stuff. Because my brand of spiritualism did not teach that. And he said, well, what do you call this? And he described it. And I said, well, that's just this lower, nasty vibration. Well, what do you call this? This is a higher, finer vibration. He goes, it's what we call angels and demons. So it's all the same thing. Bilocation, healing with, while someone's alive, healing after death, healing with using the relic of, let's say, a saint or a holy person. It's all the same. It's just named different. So that's the only difference. Is there's not a whole lot of difference. We're not as strict as like going to church as, many other religions are, but it's a big, you must feel it. You've got to know it. It's part of you. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's not for everybody. Some people need like more organization. Some people need to have, more of a hands-on approach, where a lot of us are sort of at large. I know I am. I serve a lot of different churches. I do different events, and I'm not constrained by a specific dogma, whereas a lot of people are. And don't get me wrong, the spiritualist religion has a dogma and they follow something that's called the natural laws, but I use them as a general roadmap. And that's what a lot of us do. We use that as a general roadmap.
So I usually get into this a little bit later in the show, but it's kind of got my mind going now.
Go ahead.
In the Christian religion, we have heaven. And that's where you go when you pass this earth. Now, many have different views of that. What is your view of heaven, or where we go after we pass this earth?
Well, according to the Catholic religion, we go to heaven. According to the spiritualist religion, we go to a place, it's called the Summerland, where the soul goes to rest and educate itself. And so, reincarnation is sort of there, but it's not really enforced. It's not really preached within within the national. But my personal view is that we come back. I believe in reincarnation. I believe in the fractionation of the soul, where the soul just disperses and then it mixes with other pieces of other souls, and it comes back as a different personality with some of the same attributes as maybe before. And I'm a firm believer that if we go and we try to live our life somewhat good and we learn our lessons and we just keep coming back, we become one with everything. And that's what I think my favorite part of all this is to become nothing, to lose the ego, to lose the personality, to become part of everything, and yet nothing.
So your theory that we disperse and then mix with others and come back, how does that jive with reincarnation when you're based on, and the people that have come back and saying, well, I remember when I was alive in the 1700s or something like that.
Like I say, I believe that soul breaks apart. Doesn't mean that you're going to lose everything.
Okay.
But you're going to get other pieces. So other things. And also I can't go and I can't say that this is the absolute truth, because guess what? I'm still living. So I can't go to attest that. But
with that, we got to take our first break. I hate to cut you off. We got to take our first break. So folks, stay with us. This is going to be an interesting conversation. Stay with us and we'll be right back. And welcome back with my guest tonight, Tim Shaw. Fascinating conversation. Hated cutting you off there, but let's pick it right back up. And my question to start that last segment off, or session off, was your theory is that we come apart, we come together as a different person, but how does that work with the theory of reincarnation? So I'll let you pick it up from there.
Well, basically, we are reincarnated back into a body, and we're sent back into a body, become a different type of person, people who may have full memories, which I have yet to question. I have to question that. I think that they pick up bits and pieces. I really do. I think they pick up different spots in time where they don't really follow the entire thing, except the only time that I think is, I can't remember the name of it. It was a girl who actually claimed that she had the soul of somebody else in her body, and she actually went from where she lived, and then she lived so long with another with what would have been her host family, would have been her this person who died, their family, and they swear that was her. I can't think. The Booth brothers did a doc on that a while ago. It's been a while. My brain's a little muddled on that. But again, I just feel that, I feel that they don't get the entire, maybe they get 75%. 75% stays the same. Don't know. I know in my case, I can say that in visions and dreams, I can pick up bits and pieces of a past life.
Mm-hmm.
The only one that I can actually say that I believe would have been in a German U-boat that sank. And it wasn't until I saw the movie Das Boot and then started doing a little bit more research that, okay, what I had seen really correlated closely. But yeah, we don't know. And I think that's the great part about it. It's a mystery. And like I say, I'm a firm believer that the soul does break apart. And I believe that other pieces attach and we come back that way.
And I think you bring up a really good point, because the truth of the matter is, and this is my opinion, everybody has opinions and thoughts in this field, but the truth of the matter is we really don't know.
Exactly.
We really don't know the answers. And that's kind of what worries me about some folks that are so definitive. This is the way it is. We really don't know.
No. And this is the way that I teach. This is the way I talk. This is the way I when I'm out there on the road, we don't know. We don't know. I am a firm believer in everybody. Just, if you believe it, fine. If you don't believe it, fine. I'm not a person that gets offended if somebody says, well, I don't believe what you're saying. I don't believe your concepts. Mm-hmm. It all falls within the realm of belief. I have a problem with people that are going to go and say, no, this is definitive. This is 100%. I have yet to ever have talked to anybody, have ever had an experience that I can say, this is living proof. I can say, well, I can present it. I can go and prove it. I don't know what it is. And I'm never afraid to say, I don't know what it is.
And I get you. You broke up a little bit there, but your point is really well taken, that we just don't understand it. And we've got to get beyond the point of, there are no experts in our field. That's just my opinion. With that, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about your walk into the world of mediumship, psychic mediumship. What kind of medium are you? I know there's many different types. What do you consider yourself?
I'm just a mental medium.
Okay.
I do some trance work. I do some channel work, but I'm just a mental medium. I'm not one of these people that go and say, listen, I'm going to go and I'm going to go pick up this controller and then we're going to make it levitate. That's not what I do. I just, it's hard for me to describe what type I am. Like I say, there's so many different styles and types, and it's almost as if like all the different healing modalities and that are out there. I'm just a person that goes and touches in, tries to do his best to bring through a message from someone maybe on the other side, and that's it. That's what I am. Here's the thing, Larry. I'm not special. In no way, shape, or form have I ever thought of myself as being special. That's not what I do. That's not how I work. I am there to be of service. End of story. End of story. I do the best I can. I go and I just open up, get pablum in the mouth, bring that through, end of it. So.
And when did you discover you had this gift? How old were you?
I don't know, 10 years old.
Really?
10 years old. That's when we first started going down to the Lilydale Assembly. I was about 9 years old, right around. I'm trying to think back in the early 70s, and that was all part of the Lyceum that we went and we studied. And then later on, I belonged to a smaller spiritualist church, and I started taking classes, and I started working with some great people. And then, of course, I expanded because I believe that the organization of spiritualism was too confining for me. So I started taking classes up at, I took them at the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York, and I got a chance to go and reach out a little bit further with some really great instructors, both in the Lilydale Assembly and outside the Lilydale Assembly. And I've always, and I've embraced so much. I've embraced the Native American spirituality, voodoo, Santeria. I mean, you have to go and you have to keep your eyes open. You have to go and open yourself to the possibilities of so much that's out there, because you can't walk around myopic with blinders on in this day and age. And you have to be able to go, and a lot of times if you're there to go and help somebody, especially a cleansing thing or, something's going on in the house, you have to be able to go and work within the framework of that person's spirituality or religious foundation. So you have to be able to get out there. You have to be, at least know the basics of what you're walking into. So I find it fascinating. I found that mediumship is almost universal. Some people call them prophets, some people call them whatever. Me in that case, no, I'm just that guy from Western New York that has taken some classes, man, and work. That's what I do.
Well, then let me ask you this question, because I want your opinion on this. You've got 4 mediums in a room,
Mm-hmm.
and they both give a reading. All 4 readings are not exactly the same.
Most of them should be not the same. They should not be the same.
Why?
Because
me why.
everybody is different. You've got a different physical makeup, you got a different vibrational makeup, and some people can read a person like a book. Other people can read them, but not to that hardcore extent. Just because somebody comes to me for a reading doesn't mean that I can read them spot on. And I'm there. I totally accept that. Where some people are like, well, this is definitive, and it's not. You know what? A lot of this depends on your experience. I'm a firm believer that we draw upon our own personal experiences in order to go and get the reading out. I'm a person that uses a lot of symbology. So a lot of symbology in my head. A lot of times I'll get a scene of something that I've done in order to bring that through. I use different symbols, meaning different things. But I mean, I'm a firm believer that the more experiences that you have in life, the better a reader you are, because of the fact that spirit is sending everything into your head. Everything's coming in here. It's all there. Everything's there. Huh? It's how you are able to interpret it. Just because you open your mouth up and stuff comes out does not mean that you're interpreting it correctly. You have to be able to go and just have that experiences. And that's why I have a big problem with people that they put a shingle out and they're not, and they don't have the experiences. They don't go and they don't get out there and get their feet wet with all the different cultures and everything that goes on around. And let's face it, you need as much experience as possible in order to do this in a cohesive manner.
And would you agree that there are people out there? I mean, I'm a cop. We learn how to read people when we do interviews. Would you agree?
Which is scaring me, Larry? Which is scaring me right now.
Well, if you hear a knock at your door in a minute, you'll know why. But what I'm getting at is, would you agree that there's a section of the folks that do what you're able to do? They're frankly scam artists, and that
absolutely
really hurt, and that hurts.
Absolutely.
Now, I had a tough time.
Absolutely. And you should have a tough time, and you should be skeptical about whatever comes through. That's the number one thing that people do not teach in these churches, and that's the number one thing that I teach in my classes. You know what? Just because you say it doesn't mean that it's true. Understand that there are 1,001 influences that are around you. And you know what? As an instructor, I know how to cold read. I know how to do the Carney shit. I know how to do that stuff. And you know what? I know when a student comes up to me and he's blurring out, and I look at him and I know exactly what he's doing. And that's what's so important. People don't get that because you know what? They get this whole impression that psychics and medium, they're like up there like God or angels, and all this stuff comes through. No, you have scam artists all over. Now, if you go, I'm a student of, I love spiritualist history. Love it. But let me tell you something, Larry. There are 2 ages in spiritualist history. 2. One is the golden age where it expanded and there was these possibilities and spiritualism just spread. And then there's the golden age of fraud where people were out there for the big bucks. They were sideshow hustlers. They were vaudevillians. And you know what? A lot of people hated Houdini, hated him. But I loved him because of the fact that he went out there and he figured it out. That's why I don't have a problem with skeptics and that sort of thing. The only thing I have a problem with skeptics is if they turn around and they do something, they'll tape me or whatever. And then they'll like, after, it's like dowsing or if you're doing, if you're working with tables or if you're working with Ouija boards. And I always go and I say, listen, this is an idiomotor response. This is, you're moving this stuff. Where does the information come from? I don't know, but this is all subliminal. I try to always, I always try to explain that. The only thing that bothers me is if they go and they cut that out of the interview or whatever. Oh. And, but I'm honest with it because of the fact that I don't know. And you have to be able to go, and back in the Victorian age, these were parlor games. All of this stuff, seances and all that, they were parlor games. And, you have to be, and women did not have a place in society in order to go out there and speak. Women did not needed a place. They had very few opportunities. The Fox sisters' older sister took them out there and basically prostituted Maggie and Katie, and put them on the circuit. And they hated her at the end of their lives. And of course, one of them went and said that everything they said was fake. So if that's the truth, we don't know. But here's the thing. It all falls back in the realm of belief, what your experiences are, what you've seen, and what makes sense to you. And I always think like this. I accept it until somebody comes up and says, no, this is how it works. And if you're so egotistical that you take everything to heart and somebody's attacking you because they think that you're a fraud or whatever, prove me wrong. And if you prove me wrong, I will say I was wrong. With
that, we're going to take our next break. A great ending. So folks, stay with us. We got lots more to come. Stay with us. We'll be back right after these messages. And we're back with my guest, Tim Shaw. Tim, we had a great conversation towards the end there. And I'd like to kind of toss out the fact that, I had trouble as a cop with this whole issue of mediums. I had a lot of trouble with it because, we'd investigate a homicide case and we'd get all kinds of crazy calls. But I've come to learn, it opened up my mind. In fact, one good friend of mine says, I removed that stick from my anatomy, if you'll get my... And I come to believe that there are folks that have this ability, and it puts when you get fakes out there, it does put a bad light on those that do have the ability. And I now absolutely think that's an issue. Now, you are also a paranormal investigator, am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. How do you, first of all, when did you start actually investigating this phenomenon, shall we call ghosts at this time? When did you start doing that?
Well, let's go back into the 70s, late 70s. I went and was part of what they call the spirit rescue circles. And that was like a cleansing thing, but that was like early ghost hunting. Because you went in there and you wanted to, you were trying to get some kind of reaction, from whatever was in that location. And then you would take care of it. You would try to get it to move on, try to get the spirit to move on. But like nuts and bolts stuff, you know what? I probably got fascinated, and just like everybody else, I think I got fascinated in it just in the pre years just before Ghost Hunters came on. And I cut my teeth on Hans Holzer's works, and as a matter of fact, I own one of his typewriters. That's what that's how much in esteem that I have for that man. You know, whether he was good or bad, it's like the Warren, same thing, but he was an influence on me. So I copied a lot of his work. You know, I've read a lot of the work by Harry Price and the psychical societies and that I started, you know, I would say probably in the 80s when it really started to get really interesting. So, and then I'm not going to lie, I think all the gizmos and all the stuff is pretty cool. You don't need it all, but I feel that it's something that adds to it. So I don't poo-poo anything. You know, it's whatever you feel is great. The one thing that I have a lot of questions, but I love doing it. I love EVP work. I absolutely love EVP work. But I do have a lot of questions about it because you have to understand about accidental antennas, and you have to understand, you know, how, you know, stuff that can influence it, and some direct voice is not really direct voice, but it's coming through shortwave, coming through the girders in a place. So you really have to sit down and understand it. But that being said, when you get a real-time response, that is the one time that you sit down and say, I don't know what this is, but I have to think about this seriously. And that is that's amazing. And even like, you know, and the other thing that I'm fascinated, I hate them, but I'm fascinated by them, is all the scanner boxes and the filters and stuff. And we've had some amazing, all I'm going to say is amazing results using them. And when they first came out, the old shack hacks and stuff, I hated them. I used to call them nosebleeders because I could not stand the static. And I thank God whoever decided to fall in and pick up a guitar pedal and plug that darn thing in so we could go and kill a lot of that out. But I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I've had a couple responses even in my own home that just blew my mind. And then we did an experiment at the Mansfield Reformatory a couple of years ago that was just mind-blowing. That's the only way I can describe it. It's mind-blowing. So there's something there. Oh, OSR, you know, my friend Frank.
Oh, I know Ohio State Reformatory, but tell us about the EVP.
Well, what happens, we were using a scanner. And we did you know, everybody's like, everything's provoking. Well, I don't believe everything is provoking. I believe everything that you can go and you can be very poignant when it comes to recreation. And my friend Frank and Heather they lecture on this, and we become actually trigger objects. We become the trigger objects. So by recreating it, my friend Frank, who's in the room today, he's a retired CO, and our friend Heather does some police work. So we handcuffed Frank, who's 6'3", and he's a bodybuilder. He's my trainer. And we marched in the solitaire. We did the perk walk and their whole thing, put him in a cell. And he recreated what it was like when some of these prisoners just, you know, as he describes it, the meds wear off and they start acting up and screaming and that. And what we found is the more activity he did by swearing and screaming and kicking the bars, the more responses we got. So we're standing there and the temperature dropped 17 degrees, Larry. I'm not lying. 17 degrees. There's like 5 or 6 of us there. We could start seeing our breath. And he was just going on, and our arrays outside of the cell were all pinning, which is like amazing. But what was truly amazing was the cold breeze that was coming out of this solitary cell. It was coming at us. You could feel this breeze. It was like a fan. And that way it started really getting a little oppressive. Next thing you know, we've got that squawk box going, and he's going, and all of a sudden you hear it. You hear the static, goes dead. You hear the words, kill him. It goes dead. It goes back into static. And we all kind of stopped, and we all looked at each other, and he just kept going on, you know, being him. And Heather asked, well, how many are you? Same thing. Static, dead, 20. Dead, static. And it's like, oh, you've got 20. There's 20 of you here. 20. Come on, let's go. You know, keep going on. And it's like, you can't do anything to us. Blah. Next thing you hear is same thing happens. But what it said was, we'll wait. And then it went off. So it started building. And then what happened, it's like seance. You get a bubble. We call it a bubble, an energy bubble. And it was kind of unique because these two ladies came in, and they had heard Frank screaming outside from solitary. They were outside the prison. They could hear him. They came in. But when they came in, it kind of broke everything up, and everything just kind of started the flat line. So that was an amazing thing. And the other thing was, here in my basement, you can see like the antique radio behind me. That's actually a spirit box. That's a filter box back there that I put together. And I was down here working, and I had I've had a lot of eye surgery over the years, and I had a cornea transplant a couple of years ago in the right eye. I'd lost most of my vision in it. And I was down here, and you can't do anything. You know, you know yourself, eye surgery, you can't do anything. So I was doing, I lift weights, and I'm at the gym 4 to 5 days a week, but I can't do any of that. So now I'm in my basement, and I'm like doing chair yoga, you know, just trying to keep stretch, trying to keep tone, you know. And what do? When you're a paranormal investigator, or you're a medium, whatever, you turn on the scanner. And what happened was, I was kind of thinking about, how am I going to honor this person who gave me part of his eye, this sliver of his eye, this graft? How am I going to honor this man? You know, this is very important to me to honor him. And you don't know who he is. He was 55 years old. He didn't have cancer. He wasn't HIV. You know, you have no clue who, other than that, who he was. And I was thinking about it, and all of a sudden, scanner box did that. It was chatter, went dead, and the name Felix came through, which is an unusual name. And I go, Felix, do I know you? And in real time, it did it again. It said transplant. One word, no break, one voice. It wasn't like 2 syllables. I got a hold of a friend of mine who really understands how, audio works. And he goes, did you record it? I said, of course not, because I'm down here just hanging out, you know. And he goes, well, were you listening to AM or FM? And I said, I was listening to FM. He goes, okay, because AM has got a lot of talk radio on it. That could be a possibility. And I listen, I don't know for sure. It might have been coincidence. But he goes, he says, the fact that it is a 2-syllable word, and it was singular, one voice. He goes, that's a little telling. He says, but I can't tell you if it is or not, because, a lot of times you'll send them stuff and he'll tell you what hertz it is and whether you can hear it, whether a dog can hear it. But I thought it was kind of interesting. But those are the 2 things that really happened. But what's really unique, we did an experiment again. Now, I was just up at OSR last weekend for their big SciCon. And I was up there with the celebrity thing. I was up there with Johnny Zaffis and my dear friends, Cody and Satori Hawes. And we had done Estes method up there. And it was just kind of, everybody's kind of being gentle. We had 4 different groups. Everybody kind of being gentle. And then I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to go and I'm going to shake it up, and right away explain the difference between recreation and provoking. And what I said was, hey, I want to see your paperwork. We want no chomos up here in this block. Well, wow. All of a sudden it was just coming at me. It's coming, and it's after that, I was just doing, some basic things of that nature, and we were getting responses. So we got one that actually we believe was a name. We all felt, a lot of us felt tightness in our chest. The person doing Estes felt something around her neck as if it was something was grabbing it or pulling in on it. And the name Abigail came out. Well, the man that was proctoring us up there, the docent, he came up to me and he said, this was the guy's name, which we got his name. He hung himself in a cell and he left a suicide note addressed to his mom. His mom's name was Abigail. So, sometimes what you're doing is trying to go and release that spirit. Now, Larry, let me just ask you this. Let me just put this in there. Was this actually somebody that we contacted, or was this something residual, that energy, everything was right, and we went and we just happened to trigger it? Maybe something was already there in the ethers. So I don't know, but I'm going to tell you what, it makes for fascinating thought and debate.
Well, isn't that why we do this? Because
this is exactly why we do it. This is what I love about
it. And folks, I'm a detective by trade, and I want to find the answers. But you being a medium, how do you intertwine your investigative sessions with your ability?
Very simple.
Okay.
Very simple. Because I was taught from a very early age boundaries, and I was taught at a very early age when to use them and when not to use them, because I worked with untrained mediums for years, and they could not. I worked with this one woman that couldn't even go to the supermarket or a restaurant because she felt like she was being bombarded by vibrations. A guy, way back when I was a kid, this guy, to make, long story short, this guy told me, what you're learning here down in Lilydale was not to be your life. It was to be an addition to your life, a great addition to your life. And you have to be able to go and learn how to manage it when you get out with people. And I did. And it's very basic. It's very basic because I ignore it. And I've been doing it for so long. I can walk into a busy shop or whatever and not get bombarded. I learned how to turn it on, to open the door when I want to use it, and I turn it off. When I go on a paranormal investigation, I don't belong to anything. I don't belong to a team. We have a group of friends. We get together and do this once in a while. But if I get asked to go on an investigation, I say, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to do mediumship, or do you want me to do the fun stuff? And they'll say, well, do the mediumship. Okay, I'll do a walkthrough. I got a recorder, finish it, pull my SD card out and give it to them, and I go home.
and we're going to continue this. We have to take our last break. This is going fast. So folks, stay with us. Got one more session with Tim. Stay with us. More to come. We'll be back after these messages. Back with my guest tonight, Tim Shaw. I want to take a second to thank all of our friends out there at the CanCom Broadcast Network. We're so happy to be part of the CanCom Broadcast family. Also, I want to take a moment to remind you all the great programming here on the X Zone Radio and TV Broadcast Network. And you can find that, including my old show, all of my past shows, I should say, at xzbn.net. You can come back and check all those shows out. You can learn more about me if you go to my website, IndianRiverHauntings.com, or you can find us on Facebook or our YouTube channel at Indian River Hauntings 2341. And Tim, how can folks find you, and tell us a little bit about your books too?
Well, you can find me at www.timothytshaw.com. That is the official website of the Black Cat Lounge, and that's my podcast that's on Tuesday nights. And my books, Ghost of Buffalo. I'm trying to think what else. My C2D1 Haunting. That's all. Those are still on Amazon. I co-wrote
Reverend Zombie's book of Divination. That one fascinates me.
Well, that's an old one. That's actually an old one. That one is actually, we're going to go and we're going to look into reprinting that one. That was one that I thought was a lot of fun. I knew the late Raymond Buckland, who brought a lot of the Wiccan rituals here. He was a Gardarian witch, and then when he came here, and I knew him personally, and he wrote a book called Solitary Seance later on. And I had published this one years and years ago. And what the whole premise is be your own medium, be your own psychic, learn how to do different things, learn pendulum, learn how to do dowsing, learn how to read cards without having to go and worry about, inversions and everything that's, associated with it. It was an interest. It was a great journey. And I did that quite a few years ago for one of my classes. Learn how to do scrying, because I teach scrying. Just a lot of great things to go and get out there. And I'm working on a book. It's called Scary True Stories I Tell My Friends. That'll be out in the fall. And then I also did a book of channel work called The Dogma of Me. If anybody follows me on Facebook, every so often you'll see me put up a little channeled saying. And I just got a new publisher who is interested in doing volume 2. So we're just busy all the time. That's what it is, Larry. You know what? Hey, us retired guys, I don't have time to go play golf. I got to get out there. I got to do stuff, man.
I hear you. So all the work that you've done, your abilities in mediumship, your investigative work. What is this ghost thing? What is your theory of what ghosts are or are not?
Ghosts are energetic personalities. I believe that is when we pass away, you can call it the soul or whatever. I just call it energetic personalities. It is your ego combined with your personality. And you go into a vibratory state. That's what it is. That's all it is. Nice and simple, nice. Nothing real, real fancy about it. And again, I mean, you pass on. What you are is what you're going to be until you decide if you want to change or not. And, people can go on, people can come back, it's a free for all. I'm a big guy. I'm a big hope that, like, when I die, I'm going to go to the Great Hall in Valhalla and drink mead and hang out with crazy guys wearing furs and stuff. That would be my heaven. But ghosts, for the most part, I'm a firm believer that they are one of two things. They are, you're familiar with stone tape theory, I'm sure, where something is embedded. A vibration is embedded in a location. And if the atmosphere is right and you got the right place, right person, right time, you're going to get a repeat of something that doesn't go and interact. But I'm a firm believer that, energetic personalities are here, there, and everywhere. And they can come back and forth and they can hang out and stuff. And until you really are done with your incarnations and learning, that's you're just going to keep hanging out.
These spirits and the way you described it earlier, our spirits kind of break up, but some part of these spirits, like Aunt Gertrude, stay because she doesn't want to go. Maybe she saw that light at the end of the hall and thought the elevator was going to go down instead of up. I mean,
absolutely. And we have free will to do it. And a lot of people may be afraid of it. A lot of people don't want to do it. A lot of people have responsibility still where they're watching their grandchildren or their kids or whatever. For every spirit, for every energetic personality, there's an individual story. And if we're going to working as trying to cleanse an area or get somebody to move on, everyone is an individual. It's just you would appreciate this more than anybody else. Everything is an individual case. Everything is different. Everything, and your approach has sometimes got to be individualistic in order to achieve the end result.
How does that jive with, once again, your theory that we break up? Is it just that a large chunk of it stays, and that's what we're seeing? I guess that's what I'm curious about.
I think when we're ready to move on and go back into a new incarnation, come back, I think that's when it happens. But until that time, I believe we're just energetic.
Okay. I heard somebody once, and it's always kind of made sense to me. When you die, your spirit goes to heaven, or your soul goes to heaven, but your spirit or your energy is what stays behind. I kind of thought that was interesting. But once again, it goes to the theory that we really don't know the full answer.
I don't know. You know what? I love the movie Shakespeare in Love because of the fact forever, whenever they asked a question, people would look, the guy would look and go, I don't know. It's a mystery. And I'm a firm believer that, you know what, we need to keep that childlike wonderment in order to go and keep the mystery alive, the wonderment alive, in order for us to push forward, to experiment, to use demonstrations, in order to get creative in how we face this, whether it's through belief or through mechanics.
Okay. Now, here's another curveball for you. The world of the paranormal doesn't include just ghosts anymore. I think you'll agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the cryptid question. We've got
Right.
the UFO, UAP
Yep.
question.
Yep.
I have found that in the last 5-8 years specifically, people are starting to combine those two things. And at first, I'll
Absolutely.
tell you right now, I thought, oh, what, UFOs and ghosts? But the thoughts have really changed. What's your opinion on that?
Let's face it. Stan Gordon down in Pennsylvania wrote a book, compiled all the UFO and Bigfoot sightings, the combos, an entire book full. I can't tell you how many are in this book. Now, let's look at UFO phenomena now. Back in the 1950s, it was all nuts and bolts and people walking around, Nordic guys dressed in black, driving old Caddies. You know what I mean? Now, you've got over Lake Ontario, you've got in New York State, the Hudson River Valley. You have got interdimensional stuff going on. If it's interdimensional, it's vibratory in nature. Could it yet be the same thing that powers energetic personalities? Yes, it could. These are things that we don't know enough about. For years, all these fields have been separated. Now, I just had this on my show. We were talking about the ascension on last Tuesday. And the ascension is the combination of everything. Metaphysics versus cryptozoology into paranormal. This is an amazing time. And when you sit down and you start thinking about it, it starts to make more sense than not. I posted a thing on my Facebook about a Catholic priest talking that UFOs may be demonic.
Yes, I saw that.
Now here, let's think about that. Could they be? Absolutely. We don't know. I don't personally buy into it, but could they be vibratory personalities rather than nut and bolt little green men in silver suits? I'm a firm believer in that. I'm certainly a firm believer in that. Cryptozoology, absolutely. A friend of mine, Meg Bestine, he's an Algonquin who studied under Mad Bear Anderson on the Tuscarora. Mad Bear Anderson was one of the great teachers of the Native Americans back in the 70s, 60s, and 70s. And he went and he told me that he believed that Bigfoot and these cryptids were fallen angels. That was his thing.
Interesting.
Fallen angels. So, I mean, we have to look at this as a big ball of wax, where before it was like oh God, I believe in ghosts, but UFOs, no way. Oh,
I know somebody like that.
What do you have? You have some peyote soup, and you're seeing big furry things running around. No, it's all one thing. It's one ball of wax, and it's up to us to sit down and try to decipher it. And that's why we're walking into. I wish this whole idea was going on back in the 80s when I was really starting to get back into it, because at that point I think we would be just heads and tails further in the information zone of where we are now.
Yeah, and that leads me to, as we kind of begin to wind down, it's a shame because I've got tons of more things I'd like to go over, but where do you see the future? And some people don't like to call it the paranormal field, but at least the paranormal world, where do you see it going investigative wise? Do you see us breaking through somewhere? Do you see it becoming stagnant? What's your thoughts?
Right now we're stagnant. And the reason why we're stagnant is the fact that you had a glut of TV shows on there, and most of them were not that good. And listen, I've been on ones that are not that.
Yeah, you've been on a few.
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, but here's the thing: when everything starts to settle back down, now you have truth thinkers and people who are more dedicated to these fields. And now they start looking at things outside the box rather than saying, oh, I have a K2 meter. I saw this on X amount show and this is what they did. Instead of repeating, let's go and experiment and develop new theories. A good friend of mine, Lauren Hallickson, is one of the people out there. She's a mover and shaker, and she looks at things so differently and scientifically that she blows my mind when I listen to her speak. And this is what we need. And again, on a spiritual level, we need those type of people within the belief system. How can we break through? How can we get more poignant? How can we get more information that is correct? How do we do that? People need to go, and we have to let it all settle, and then we have to go back to what we know and build upon the foundation that everyone has left behind.
Through training, I think training is important.
Big time.
And we also, and this is just my opinion, we need to have some structure. We have to have some sort of commonality in how we investigate. Not everybody investigates the same way, but we have to have the commonality for all of us to share the information properly. So
yes, I agree. You and I, 100%.
Yeah, you and I are on the same page there. So in our last 45 seconds, any parting words?
You know what, Larry? It's an honor to be on your show. And I'm so thrilled that you asked me to be on. And it's just great. And you're just such a great host. And what I loved about it is you really have that open mind that is inquisitive. And I guess that's, I'm sure that's from all your years of training and your experience. And that's what we need. We need that across the board, whether it's paranormal, whatever, if it's belief-based, science-based. We need that. We can't be myopic. We can't sit there with blinders on because we're going to miss the whole picture.
And on that note, thank you so much, Tim, for joining us tonight. Thank all of you out there. Time on Paranormal Stakeout. Please take care, love your family, and we'll see you on the other side. Have a good night.